plugins can make all sorts of widgets that you could, now, because they're incredibly easy to write, the quality will vary. Yes.
What's your definition of a dashboard?
Well, for WordPress purposes, because WordPress calls this the dashboard, I'm referring to anything in this panel as the dashboard. So not necessarily just the front page of this, but basically the WordPress administrative panel.
Part of the thing is out of the box, you can just, if you take a standard thing, you can administer everything from here. What Peggy's showing you is, once you've got it out of the box, it will go further.
You can add your own dashboard pages and sections, and menus, and it's so easy. When you don't know what's going on, it's like, how did they do this? It's so magic. We just went through this last week. So that's why I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Months and months on doing one.
And there are plugins, say there's plugins that can help you with like your user access. So, currently WordPress has like 4 levels of user access. You could, but if you decided that you wanted everybody who was, say, an author level to only see certain things in the dashboard, you could do that, so they'd get a different view. So lots of different ways you can use those.
So I just have to keep my mind from going blank when I hit this page.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I gave you admin privileges for your site because you're the owner of it, but you don't have to look at it all. So as I'm saying, the quality of plugins can vary because it's just PHP scripts, and pretty much anybody can dive in and create them. Some work well, some don't. If you go to WordPress has a great plugin directory where people can also vote on them, so you can kind of see. So there's 12,000 plus plugins in the WordPress directory. They don't include all the really crappy ones,
I'm sorry, so the plugin directory on WordPress.org is ones that have been sort of tested to some degree.
To some degree. I mean, not as carefully as apps for the iPhone store, iPhone apps, but to some degree, right? And you can, browse them by tags, and you can search for them. And if we go to hopefully not, but because it's here, though, does not mean that it's, no guarantee. The rating system works pretty well. So BuddyPress, for example, has 4.5 stars, which makes sense because it's very popular. And then people can comment about it. People will say whether it's working or it's broken. And with that, you always have to sort of take that with a grain of salt, because is it broken, or did they configure it wrong, or are people who are having problems more likely to complain? So it's a little bit of everything. But I do like to look at this when I'm deciding whether to test out a plugin or not. Because when you're trying to do something, you may find 10 different plugins that do sort of what you're looking at, and you install one and it doesn't quite work, or it invalidates your code, or it conflicts with. They also can conflict with each other. So you can install something and have something entirely unrelated stop working. So you have to kind of test things out a little bit.
Do you have multiple sandboxes when you're going to drop things down? I mean, like, what my partner and I do is that we use Drupal, which has a lot of the same methodology concepts.
Right.
And so we have D1, D2, D3, because if we're going to drop something down, I mean, we had that horror of we dropped something down and it destroyed a whole bunch of other things, and we couldn't figure out how to get rid of it, and it really became a snake in mess. So have you been that, because we became that anal, it was such a horror, that we would replicate the site and call it, D7, and drop something down and test it and see if it breaks anything before we migrate it over to the main one.
Yeah, I usually don't make that many copies, although I will experiment kind of on my own turf rather than on a live site.
WordPress 3.01, 3.0.1 is a new feature, which used to be a separate feature called multi-site. You have to edit a couple files to get set up, and there's a few steps. But once you've got that set up, on DreamHost, what I do is I have my main one, and then I can set up sub-sites in a subfolder. When I install a plugin, you install it from super administrative, but it doesn't get activated until you go to a particular site and activate it. So I've got a site down there that I activate just for that site. And so that's how I'm doing all my tests for now. I do everything with SVN, too, so subversion, which is a whole separate thing from WordPress. But that makes it super convenient.
That's a good use for multi-site.
Yeah, I love multi-site.
Yeah.
I use it for, I've got the form thing, and I've got the wiki thing. And so now all my forms and all my wiki are just basically WordPress posts. So if I want to migrate anywhere, it's a super, I don't have to migrate 30 tables from PHP. And you get you the advantage of single sign-in to your whole site, every feature.
Yeah, I'm working on a site. Well, we just launched it. We have a few more tweaks to go. But this site has 2 different audiences, and they wanted 2 blogs as well. And so we used multi-site for that, so we could have the separate blogs for everyone, but also so that we wouldn't confuse, when we gave people author access, we wouldn't confuse them by having too many choices that they would get into and possibly mess something up. So I can make, Susie, I can make her an admin on this particular site within the system, but not give her access to anything else. And it's kind of a nice way of divvying up the content. But, okay, 14 minutes. So plugins. I have a list here of the ones most of the ones that I used in this. One of my favorites I should probably talk about is Headspace 2 SEO. This is a plugin for search engine optimization. Do a lot of you optimize your sites? And what's handy about this, so all-in-one SEO is the big popular one that most people use, but I like this one because it allows you to control things on a global level or on other levels. Basically, so if you want to customize your page titles and descriptions and tags and things like that. So here, they have a little simple code there that you can put in to start. And they list all these down here, so you don't have to remember any of this stuff. You just go and grab the little bit you want. Toss all these things together and watch the colored circle spin more. You can customize this. It tells you how many characters are remaining, because there's usually a sort of a character limit on descriptions. Here, this name is clunky. I haven't figured out the best thing to call this yet, but I'll figure that out later. Oops. With this plugin, it allows you to customize things not only in that front page, but also on individual posts and also by category, which I found handy because, so here, if we go into our category called WordPress plugins, I could do a custom description here. This is plugins. Update. And now that description will apply to any of my posts in that category that I don't customize myself. So if I am lazy and I forget to put in a little description in my blog post about wildebeests, it will bring in the default description for that particular category. And I like that you can do it on a category by category level. Particularly for those of you involved in social media, when, let's say, you're posting a link on Facebook that you want your friends to share, and you put in the link and you write your little blurb, and you know how it comes up with that description with the thumbnail? That is this description item. So it's very helpful to be able to customize those on a per-page basis if you want people sharing your content and having that blurb be something meaningful. Let's get that to our plugins list. So, okay, 9 minutes. So basically, I've included a list of several sort of, different types of plugins here. Twitter link comments I find is useful for when you want people to comment on your blog. Normally the default is your name and website, and this gives you, well, if I weren't logged in, it would give you a field to show your Twitter address.
So is that second to the last line, is that what makes it into like a bit.ly?
No, that's what that bit is doing is it's adding a field to your form to put in your Twitter ID. There. It's one of the things about WordPress is some pages do look different when you're logged in than when you're not. So I'm not logged in Safari, so if the page will ever load, it should. See what I mean? Okay. So in this case, this is where I left my test comment, but here, this is this little field there that it has. But then it also makes sure that it gets shown here, so that
So it has, you put in just the ID and it puts the full URL.
right, yeah. So just a handy little plugin to add that functionality.
Aren't there literally thousands and thousands of plugins that have been?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That can drive me crazy, is finding the right plugin.
Exactly. Yeah, there are just so many options. You know, I think there are, and I'm blanking on them now, but
The head first one.
Right.
Yeah, just came out. It's like a soup box.
What's it called?
Head first. The whole head first series from O'Reilly is really good. After you, what's the name, created it. But it's all visual stuff.
I can come up with a list and add them to the website too for future reference. Okay, so we're almost out of time here. Basically, I've created pages on several of these plugins, so you can read more about each of them. Oh, and so yeah, the reason for this one was WP Touch Mobile Theme is the mobile plugin that I've used on this site. And what I found is it seems to work really well for blog posts. In terms of, you know, if you're reading a lot, you know, it's hard to read on a phone. It'll format a blog post pretty nicely, and it gives you a list like this one here, where you can see the name of the post, and then you can click through, and it will show you the actual entry. No problem. But when it comes to pages, it's sort of a little bit clunky because I've ordered my pages hierarchically. I basically created these sections, and then I've got pages within them. So I don't have just a pure alphabetical list. So when I go in to view the pages on the site,